Thank you for joining us on Idaho State of Mind, where we endeavor to educate the citizens of Idaho on the state of higher education. I'm Libby Howe. This is a production of Idaho State University, and we are proud that the majority of the show's content is created by Idaho State University students. On today's show, the war on terror has had a major impact on higher education as soldiers returning from war choose to take advantage of the GI Bill. Today's show will focus on how the face of higher education in Idaho is changing to meet the needs of returning soldiers. Veterans at Idaho State University have a built-in community when they first set foot on campus. It's called the Veterans Sanctuary, and it creates a smooth transition from the stresses of military life to the stresses of hitting the books. We'll take an in-depth look at the Veterans Sanctuary's services later in the show. But first, our top story today. Idaho State University recently announced they have risen a level in the Carnegie Foundation's classifications to the level of Research High University. Idaho State of Mind reporter Chris Cole has been following the story, and he joins us live in the studio with more. Now, Chris, I understand it's quite difficult for universities to raise their Carnegie classification. Not many universities out there were able to do it this year.
That's right, Libby. The Carnegie Foundation classifications are highly regarded as a standard of academic excellence. Now, it takes major university changes to be able to attain a higher classification. With the classification, the state of Idaho now secures 2 spots at this level of the Carnegie Foundation's list, bringing attention to Idaho, especially from investors and corporations.
ISU President Arthur Vallis recently announced that Idaho State is now in the gold standard of universities.
Really, this is a triumph for everyone in the institution. First of all, it really was the hard work of our faculty that got us to the position where we are.
The Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching looks at all the institutions in the United States every 6 to 7 years. From there, they classify each one based on federal data about the institution into different tiers of the hierarchy.
At the top of that hierarchy are what we call the doctoral research institutions, and there are 3 levels. ISU used to be at the bottom of those 3 levels.
Now, along with 98 other universities, ISU is classified as a Research University High in the middle of the top tier. The university joins Kent State, Boston College, and University of Idaho. The next step for ISU is to be associated with the ranks of Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, and Yale. The payoff of this new ranking? Prestige and respect in the academic world. But prestige means more than simple bragging rights. Universities with stellar reputations are more likely to be entrusted with major research dollars from both government and private industries.
It will be one of the first things I tell anybody about Idaho State University when just trying to provide a thumbnail sketch of the research at the university. That would probably be the first thing I would say.
My next goal is to even get higher and join the category of the high research universities, or at least set the path and the trajectory that one can continue the great work and effort that has been done over the years here.
Certainly, it will be a long road to reach President Vallis's next goal. But, Libby, I should add that the president set the goal of raising ISU's Carnegie classification when he took the job just 5 years ago. Libby, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Well, there are about 4,600 universities and colleges in the United States, and this new classification puts ISU among the top 5%. Well, ISU has struck gold with the art of communication. The ISU debate team has become one of the best in the country. Debate leader Dr. Sarah Partlow-Lefevre encourages her debaters with hard work and devotion to better themselves.
I have a philosophy that allows the debaters to learn themselves and to become their own greatest strength.
The ISU debate team is often ranked above prestigious schools such as Pepperdine, Johns Hopkins, and Stanford. ISU has been ranked as high as 8th in the nation in the debate standings. Success at ISU is catching the attention of students at other universities. Debater Tony Johnson left the University of Wyoming to join ISU.
I had the motto when I came here, if you can't beat them, join them.
The ISU debate team has won over 180 individual and team awards, including 36 first place awards. And a team of researchers at Idaho State University has recently discovered that sagebrush removal, whether for new construction or animal life, can actually introduce noxious weeds into the area. 3 ISU faculty, researchers, and 1 graduate student conducted the study. The research team compared areas where sagebrush had been cleared to areas that remained intact. The findings show there was a marked increase in exotic weeds in areas where sagebrush had been removed. Sagebrush is a native plant and a foundation for the plant and animal life in the West. Sagebrush plants have deep roots that can go deep into the groundwater, which lets grasses and wildflowers use soil near the surface. When the sagebrush is removed, the weeds move in, rooting themselves into the same water supply as the native grasses. The study suggests not only do the invasive weeds need to be removed, but native plants such as sagebrush should also be reestablished. The term archaeology brings to mind the tedious work of uncovering lost history in the sands of, say, Egypt or the jungles of ancient Aztecs. But researchers at ISU have brought a new face to archaeology using 3D digital scans. Elaine Washam has the story.
Bones are like gold in the scientific world. There are only so many to examine, and with researchers and educators around the world wanting to access them, well, it can be tough on the people and the bones.
And having people touch bones hurts them. It actually degrades them. One of the biggest problems that the biology department has is replacing their skeletons. After so many sessions, you just can't have people handling bone anymore.
And that's why researchers at ISU are turning these into this. It's a site called VZAP, which stands for Virtual Zoo Archaeology of the Arctic Project. Using the site, scientists around the world are able to view a collection of 3D bone scans. The project started with a grant from the National Science Foundation. More recently, researchers have received another grant of just over $1 million. Herb Mashner, Corey Scow, and Scow's fellow colleague Jonathan Holmes created the site.
It makes the actual data available to people anywhere in the world where they can do their own research using Idaho State University collections and Idaho Museum of Natural History collections.
Here at the lab, they scan each bone with this 3D scanner and let the computer do its work. After the scan is done, the image needs to be tweaked by the researcher. It will take several scans to capture all the data. On this grizzly bear femur bone, the researcher is bringing the color and texture on the bone back to life using Photoshop. The researchers have to take photos of the bone from all angles, like on this poster of a human skull. Then they morph the photos to the scan.
Specifically because we're working with a 3D model, and a 3D model, even though it's a representation in a 2D image, they're not the same. So they don't directly translate to each other. You could liken it to trying to flatten an orange peel after you've unwrapped it.
Ideally, when the bone is ready for the website, you should be able to see the tool marks on the bone. The killer whale skull seen on the computer is in critical condition.
Probably, after it gets rigged and hung, will probably not be handled very much, ever again.
The images captured here will preserve the compromised bone for future generations. At the Virtual Museum, Elaine Washam, Idaho State of Mind.
Next, Mashner and the team will start building a K-12 educational module on Idaho history through a teaching incentive grant. In the future, he would like to start making repositories of everything in the Idaho Museum of Natural History. Veterans returning from active duty tend to experience a wide range of difficulties as they integrate into college life. Idaho State University is working to become a national leader in meeting the unique needs of veteran students. In today's show, we'll take an in-depth look at how a university can support veterans in their pursuit of higher education. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have really had an impact on ISU's student population. 30 ISU students have been deployed with the Idaho National Guard and are serving in Iraq. From classroom to war zone, these student soldiers are having to adapt to a drastically different lifestyle.
Being away from home, missing the people that you love and that are normally there for you, and you just got to rely on the people that are around you there.
Idaho State University is working to support these ISU students who are on active duty. Various groups at the university and the Pocatello community came together to assemble care packages for Idaho troops deployed overseas. Tammy Godfrey is a member of the ISU Veterans Club. She is also a former National Guard member, serving 16 years before being honorably discharged. Godfrey says the care packages don't only help soldiers feel connected and supported back home, they also see that they will continue to be supported by ISU when they return home.
we've got people that are over there that live in the Pocatello area that have not gone to college and are thinking of going to college when they come back, and they're seeing how much we care for our veterans and our soldiers, and they're looking at ISU now as a possibility for schools.
Godfrey and all the veteran supporters at ISU will continue their mission to make the return home as smooth as possible for our soldiers overseas. Veterans from out of state are encouraged to attend Idaho's universities thanks to legislation passed in July of 2010, waiving out-of-state tuition for veterans and their dependents.
It is encouraging. The cost of college in general is quite expensive. So when you have an opportunity to be considered in-state students and receive lower tuition rate, it does make the decision a little bit easier.
There are 3 criteria veterans must meet in order to qualify for out-of-state tuition fee waiver. First, they must have served 2 years of active duty, they must have been honorably discharged, and they must attempt to establish residency within 1 year. Jackie Nelson, who is a veteran's wife from Colorado, said she and her husband save about $5,000 per semester by having their tuition waived. Making that transition from a hostile war environment to a college campus can be extremely difficult for veterans. Recognizing the unique challenges veterans face as they enter college, Idaho State University decided to create a program designed to support every aspect of a veteran student's life. Sean Forey explains.
The Veterans Sanctuary at Idaho State University is a support program for those who have served in the United States military and are making the transition back into a college setting. The Veterans Sanctuary began after student veterans found a need to provide a one-stop shop for other vets with resources and services exclusive to them.
We're a hub for pretty much any campus service that would benefit veterans. We don't offer it all in-house ourselves. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We'll walk a lot of veterans to different offices on campus.
The many services provided to vets from the sanctuary include vet-to-vet tutoring in math and English, scholarship information, vet housing, and individual and group counseling sessions. Aaron Metelsky, an ISU student and active member at the Veterans Sanctuary, served 2 tours in Iraq. Metelsky contacted the Veterans Sanctuary at ISU upon leaving the Army to seek guidance before beginning school.
It helped out a lot making my contacts before I even got down here, and that way when I got down here I was able to already know who to talk to, go find the right people to talk to, and it was a great help.
One of the most important services the Veterans Sanctuary offers vets are meetings every other week to socialize and plan events.
Just those kinds of activities bring in other military veterans into the club too, is what we do. We invite supporters in, families in. We're open to everybody.
For Idaho State of Mind, this is Sean Forey.
Idaho State University has about 800 student veterans. However, only a third of them use the sanctuary for guidance. The ISU campus in Pocatello isn't the only place where veterans can go to get help with college. ISU recently started a new veterans club at ISU's campus in Idaho Falls as well. Idaho State of Mind's Jeff Beery introduces us to a veteran who is making a difference in the lives of his fellow student vets.
Early in the process of creating a veterans sanctuary, founder Scott Turner and Lynn Roberts needed a student veteran to discuss ideas with. Enter Dustin Mortimer, a veteran with student government experience and a drive to be involved. Dustin's experiences gives insight for the needs of veteran students.
The readjustment process, it's literally a change in a person. It's a complete transformation of a way of thinking, a way of living.
With the success of the Veteran Sanctuary in Pocatello, Dustin has been able to open a second sanctuary in Idaho Falls.
There's enough veterans in this area to be supported by that club. So it gives an outlet for veterans to not only be here for their education, but for a social outlet and be comfortable with other veterans.
At University Place in Idaho Falls, Jeff Berry, Idaho State of Mind.
As the state-designated provider of health professions education, Idaho State University brings us Healthy State of Mind, a segment dedicated to all things health-related. Healthy State of Mind starts today with a major health problem affecting returning soldiers. They call them the walking wounded, veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan with a traumatic brain injury or TBI. Most TBIs are the result of roadside bomb blasts so powerful they disrupt normal brain function. Russell Spearman is director of Idaho's Traumatic Brain Injury Program, housed in the Institute of Rural Health at ISU's Meridian Health Science Center. He works closely with Idaho veterans who are living with a traumatic brain injury and their families.
It can involve anything from their emotions and their feelings, and sometimes they have difficulty with impulse control. You know, they might escalate. They might have bursts of anger. You know, in situations that normally, you know, we would have coping strategies, you know, in order to get through. Sometimes personality changes can come into play. Social skills can be impacted for a person.
With grant money from the U.S. Health Resources and Services Administration, Spearman and his research team have created a website that provides comprehensive information about TBI resources and services in Idaho, not just for vets, but for all Idahoans living with a TBI. Go to www.idahotbi.org to find out more information. Spearman is also working with state lawmakers to set up a trust fund to assist TBI survivors who are moving from critical to independent living. The stresses of war can have a major impact on a soldier's psyche. More often than not, that emotional distress doesn't go away just because they've returned home. That's one reason free counseling is an integral part of the Veteran Sanctuary services. Summer Giok sat down with an ISU student who serves in the U.S. military. He served for 11 years, but met one of his most difficult battles after he returned home.
Casey Wells spent 1 year in Kuwait as part of the National Guard doing police work. Being overseas was tough, but Wells said he got to be a part of something great.
And from the time we got there, from the year we got there, we'd built these orphanages up. We were able to take in about 14 more of each kid, little girls and boys in each orphanage, and help fund it, help it raise. Because there are a lot of kids over there that have no family.
Wells returned home in 2007. 3 years later, he decided to further his education and start attending ISU.
I just had a complete breakdown. I couldn't figure out if I was going to school, like why. I couldn't even think, and I did. I actually walked up in the counseling department pouring down sweat, and just the anxiety from school. And I just think that I did have other things from when I had deployed that I hadn't ever addressed.
Wells realized he needed help. He hesitated, though, because of the stigma about counseling.
I tell a lot of veterans, we're wired that if we go to counseling, we're broke. You know what I'm saying? And I still say to this day, I'm a huge advocate for the counseling center here. If I wouldn't have went to counseling, I would not still be here going to school. Bottom line, I would have walked out. I was already out the door.
The Veterans Sanctuary at Idaho State University provides counseling opportunities for students, including returned military personnel.
We'll work above and beyond what we need to do to make sure that they can get seen and get help.
Dr. Locke stated that family members are the most important people in helping the veterans adjust.
And if there's warning signs like suicide, significant alcohol issues, really severe withdrawal on the part of the veteran, those are things to take very seriously. Very, very seriously, and to talk to someone. Worst case scenario, if it doesn't get better and the vet's not willing to get help, get them immediate help by going down to the hospital.
As the minute I walked out, I felt better. For the second it took me to get up to the office, it took me 48 hours to get up there. The hour when I came out, I felt completely different.
As we just saw, living in a war zone can have far-reaching emotional and mental effects long after a soldier has returned home. Joining us today is Dr. Hillary Locke. She's a licensed psychologist with ISU's Counseling and Testing Center. Dr. Locke, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
You deal with a lot of veterans as they are coming home and they're starting to integrate back into normal life. What are some of the most common things that you see?
Well, in the Iraq-Afghanistan war, we've had about 2 million veterans, and the funny thing is a lot of veterans are actually being saved. Soldiers are being saved more than they used to be, and so we're seeing a lot more. That's good news, but we're also seeing a lot more injury. And they're not all physical. So veterans could come home and have a traumatic brain injury, anywhere from 20 to 30%. They could have what's called PTSD based on the trauma, the events that they experienced, and that's up to maybe anywhere from 35% in the reports I've been seeing. Of course, substance abuse, depression, suicide. I think we're losing maybe 18 veterans a day.
Wow. So the mental ramifications of going to war are actually very large for soldiers. You mentioned post-traumatic stress disorder. 35% approximately are dealing with this. What are some of the things that they're dealing with as they have post-traumatic stress disorder?
Okay. Keep in mind that anywhere from 60% of men to 50% of women in the average population have some kind of trauma in their lives. And a small proportion of that may experience post-traumatic stress. In the veterans population, in the soldier population, they're an at-risk group. And so you're seeing high numbers, but there could be post-traumatic stress that's mild. Someone coming home and they're reliving the events of war. They can't let the memories go. They're having nightmares. They're sitting and daydreaming and remembering all the things that happened. It's almost like they've left war so suddenly. They're not really ready to let it go yet. There's also a numbing or an avoiding that tends to go along with PTSD. And with avoiding, you don't want anything to do with anything that reminds you of war, so what you'll see is a partner coming home with their partner and they don't want to talk about anything to do with war, when in fact that's probably a good thing for them to do. Numbing, that's emotional. A veteran might be angry, but their emotions are kind of skewed, and so they're sort of maybe happy, maybe angry, but not sad, not a lot of tears, not a lot of despair, and so there's a dulling or a numbing of some of the emotions. And of course, I forget the last one. I'm sorry.
The arousal symptoms, I understand.
Arousal, yes. Lots of arousal, but it's not in the way that you think. A lot of times there's hypervigilance, so the veteran simply feels very overstimulated. They can't stop they have a lot of activity with their thoughts. They can't sleep. They're jittery, things like that.
And I would think things like not being able to sleep really affects your life just in general.
That alone, insomnia can affect your life significantly.
Yes. I know a lot of times it's difficult for people to see things or problems within themselves. Family members play a large role in helping them to detect these kinds of things.
Family members are key. Family members, when a vet, when a soldier's gone, whether they're driving the vehicles, they're at war, they're operating machinery, things like that, the family are what really help hold down the home. So when the veteran comes home, the family sometimes don't know how to shift and transition roles to let the veteran sort of back into the home. And so there can be a difficult transition period. What can help, a family member can recognize if the veteran seems odd or unusual or different than they used to be. If they seem like they're withdrawing, if they're not feeling that they can talk about what's going on and things like that.
Okay. These are very important things for veterans and their families to know. We will have some information on the website. Dr. Hillary Locke, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And for those who are interested in looking at more information about some of these things like post-traumatic stress disorder, you can go to our website at www.isu.edu/Idaho State of Mind. The ISU Veterans Club works closely with Pebble Creek Winter Sports School to offer a special vets-only program. Local vets are invited to sign up for ski and snowboard lessons at a reduced cost. Army vet and snowboard instructor Sean Sherrod says there's much more in store for this budding program.
The program we're working on right now is the Learn to Ski and Snowboard program, where they can come up here and take a series of 2-hour lessons and get the feel for the snow. Later on in the semester, we're also going to have rock climbing, cross-country skiing, and a fly fishing and raft trip planned.
The Learn to Ski and Snowboard program is available to vets for only $25, which includes a lift pass, equipment rental, and 2-hour lessons. The ISU Veterans Club encourages vets to get involved in the outdoor activities and experience what the local community has to offer. On another episode of Idaho State of Mind, we will explore the cultural diversity university life brings to the communities of Idaho. The hundreds of international students choosing to study at ISU share their culture and heritage with Idaho locals through events like Chinese New Year and African Night. We will also talk to an ISU student whose recent trip to the UN headquarters resulted in conversations with Mayan elders. And that's all for this episode. Thank you for joining us. I'm Libby Howe with Idaho State of Mind. We'll see you next time.